Trying to get my framing right.
Yeah, get in there.
My head, and it's all reversed. That's fine.
Hello, everybody out there in internet land. Welcome to the Spotlight. Well, not the Spotlight Theater. I keep wanting to say welcome to the Spotlight Theater. Welcome to my basement office. And we are live once again here on Facebook with the incredibly talented, super funny, amazing human being, Hal Lublin, from the Thrilling Adventure Hour, Good Morning Night Vale. We got this with Hal and Mark, which I really want to ask you a lot of questions about that because
I'm here for you.
I gotta tell you, I love listening to that, and it's so funny, and you guys do such a great job with that. But first of all, how are you? How are things? What is LA looking like? What is the status out there?
Yeah, so we've been since last Friday at a safer at home shelter in place situation. So we're, everybody's managing. I'll try to go outside once a day if I can, just to take a little walk.
Yeah.
And it's sparsely populated. Shopping is kind of weird right now, but I think we're past the hoarding and everything is sold out stage, which is nice.
Well, that's good.
And it's just sort of figuring out, all right, what's normal life going to be like for the next month or 2 months or however long this is going to take.
Right. Well, and that's really the bizarre thing is that we just don't know how long this is going to go for.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy. But yeah, we're still, our grocery store of toilet paper, which is the weirdest thing to me. I still don't understand where that concern is coming from.
Well,
we have all the toilet paper. We have to hoard it.
We didn't realize when the zombies came, we'd still have to wipe. So we've got to figure that out. That is number one. Forget the food. Forget water. I know I'm going to make a number two, and I have to clean up afterwards because, what if somebody sees my underwear?
Yeah, exactly. If the zombies come, I have to be clean.
Yeah, that's right.
They come for me. I'm going to be clean. Right. Gosh darn it. Well, let's for those people out there, we'll give them a little bit of background. So we met at Los Angeles. And I was trying to remember, because all of that kind of blends together with me. Because I know that I think you were in one of the graduate groups before I graduated.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, yeah.
Possibly, were you in the kids' table?
I was in the kids' table shortly. I was in the group before that very quickly, and I can't remember. Yeah. I remember there's the group, the kids' table, and I can't remember the third group. I was in that
group.
The group.
Okay.
Yeah. I was in that for a hot second, and then I moved up to the kids' table, and I was there for a little while, and then I think it was just Wednesday nights were weird, and Fred wasn't doing, you weren't doing Cross, Ross, and Tubbs anymore, so I was asked to step in. Right. And I always thought, obviously a fan of the three of you, and to get to play with you, I'd never really improvised with you before.
No, yeah, I think that was the first. I mean, aside from like those nights when we would like mesh with other groups, but once with Cross, Ross, and Tubbs, Fred left, and then it became Lublin, Ross, and Tubbs.
Yeah,
which I love. We were so creative with the names.
Yeah, that took us 5 hours of brainstorming. Did we all have like lunch in Westwood or something together?
I think so. Yeah. And it's so funny because like I look back on a lot of my improv groups that I've been involved in, and it's just been names. Like I was in a group called Tubbs and Kelly, and Cross, Ross, and Tubbs, Lublin, Ross, and Tubbs. I'm like, man, I gotta start coming up with some better names here.
Look, people want to know when they show up that they're going to see you there. And when your name is in the group, then they know, all right, Brent's going to be in it. Because I mean, you are and were at that time so funny, and like there's something really pure about the way that you play that makes it such a pleasure and gives everybody you're playing with so many options that I was so excited just to be a part of it. I was like, they better keep Brent's name in this, or I'm going to be pissed off.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I did not expect you to come on and say such nice things.
Well, surprise.
Yeah.
Surprise. I'm a fan.
So we performed together there time before I ended eventually leaving LA. I still to this day, I remember my last improv show in LA was with Lublin, Ross, and Tubbs. And I mean, I still remember the scenes because it was a very surreal moment for me of like, wow, this is going to be the last time I get to do this with these people.
Yeah. What do you remember? Yeah. What are some what is there a scene that stands out in your mind? Because I remember bits and pieces of stuff we did together, but I wonder if it was the same show.
Yeah, the scene that really stands out we were like in spring break. And
oh my god!
I was like an older man trying to navigate spring break, and then I was out in the audience, and it was the end of the show, and you guys ended up like bringing me up as old man onto stage, and you were like the young partiers, and then the entire theater erupted into chanting. I think they were the character's name at first, but then it morphed into everybody started chanting my name, which was it was like, oh my gosh. So that to me always stands out in my mind as just such a cool moment from my improv career.
Well, you know, you were very loved in Los Angeles, still are, but I mean, definitely at that time, it was like, oh, Brent's not going to be here anymore. That's crazy because you were a cornerstone of that community. So it was tough to see you go.
Yeah, that means a lot. I miss LA terribly, constantly. Some things more than others.
Sure.
There's a lot that I don't miss.
Yeah.
Like the 2-hour commute to and from work every day.
It's not a problem now. You can get anywhere very quickly.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Well, that was the thing. I worked in Westwood and lived nice. It was 2 hours Monday through Friday, but on a Sunday I could get there in 20 minutes.
Yep.
So that was always like, that was eye-opening for me all the time. So now I want to ask you and just kind of get kind of what the history behind the Thrilling Adventure Hour, because that become such a huge thing. And I remember those early days back at M-Bar and going and watching that show all the time and going, for those of you that don't know the Thrilling Adventure Hour, it's a live stage reading, basically like a radio show, live stage reading with live music, and just a super talented cast. But I remember those early days watching that show going, this is something very cool. And at the time, to me, it seemed very different than anything else I had seen. So how has that show now morphed? I mean, I know there's a graphic novel,
right?
Comic books, the podcast now. So what has that experience been like for you?
Sure. So, you know, when I joined, I think I was there either the 4th or 5th show was when I jumped in, and we were doing stuff at M-Bar, which is a little supper club that no longer exists, I don't think.
Oh, really?
It was at Vine and Cahuenga. Is that where it was? But
that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. And all these incredibly talented people at Annie Savage, Mark Gagliardi, Mark Evan Jackson, Craig Kukowski, Paul F. Tompkins and Paget Brewster, Dave Gruber-Allen, John DiMaggio, like all these great people doing the show. And for 5 years, we could pack that room. It was a smaller room, and it was the same people coming back. They loved the show. And we moved to a larger venue after that. And that was also the time when we started podcasting. I know Ben Acker and Ben Blacker are the guys who write and produce it. And they had wanted to podcast it earlier, but it was hard to get good recordings at that space. So we shifted to Largo in 2010, and it was kind of tough to fill that house because it was about twice the size of where we were playing, like 2 to 3 times the size. Then they were always very good at getting guests. So you would see in those early days, somebody you knew from television would be in the audience watching somewhere, and then the next month they would be in the show. So it was like they would come and see it and check it out. And when we got Nathan Fillion to do the show, that was when he helped our audience find us. And then we sold out every show for 5 years after that.
Yeah.
And in like 2012 was when we did the Kickstarter, and that was a graphic novel, and we did a concert film. We started to go to Comic Cons and tour in different cities, do New York, we've done San Francisco a bunch, Seattle, Chicago. Just like, it was incredible to have these people who only knew it through the podcast, where they hear the different segments, because it's 3 segments in a live show. They would only hear one segment at a time, to have them digest the show the way I think it's kind of meant to be seen, which is see all of it as see all 3 pieces with the ads as connective tissue. I think that's like the pure kind of Thrilling Adventure Hour experience. So it's interesting. Last Sunday, we did a live stream that came together very last minute. Like, let's raise money for food banks. Everybody immediately was on board with it. And we raised, I think, $12,000 for New York, LA, and Seattle.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
Like, but again, it's also for all these people, the outpouring on Twitter was, I never got to see the show live. So this was great to actually see it performed in some way. So I'm hoping we're going to do it again.
Yeah. I saw all the posts, everything. It looked fantastic. And have you found then that since was it the podcast really that just really kind of grew the audience to be able to go to New York and all these other cities? I mean, for me, I'd be like, what's this going to be like?
Yeah.
Obviously knew there was an audience there that they would be able to bring a live show too.
Once you have a podcast and it does well, and again, that's a credit to the number of famous people who came aboard. They really helped sort of boost the signal. Then you have a sense of like, I think we could do well at a place like New York. But I think it always felt to me like every time we went to a new place, it was sort of a test. Like, we have no idea. Yeah. Like, hopefully people will like it. And then they sold really well. So it's hard to get a scope when you're recording something once a month for the same people, because they would buy their tickets early and they would be in line when you showed up to go backstage. That was the only way we could really grow the audience, unless we were going to do a ton of extra shows in a month. And that's tough with the number of people who are working regularly. But it's the shows that you saw back at the M Bar, it's weird to think back on that when Acker and Blacker were still figuring out the format. We had live magicians and then musical guests that were playing sort of anachronistic music. Like, somebody would get up and play like Blackbird in the middle of the show. Be like, this isn't old time radio. And those early days, like, it's sort of like the Beatles and the Cavern Club, where they're like, oh, there's this band, they've got a lot of talent, and only a few people could do it at a time. Was it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe it'll go somewhere. So it's amazing to think that 15 years later, we're here talking about it. All of us, the WorkJuice players, we all are still in close contact with one another, and so happy to be in each other's lives and work together. And it's just like, that's from theater, when you do a show, the cast becomes super close, but it also gets transient because you move on to the next show and then you become super close with that cast. You may not be in touch with everybody the same amount. You might bring a couple friends with you, but this feels like all of us are family, and we will be forever.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I think, a lot of the appeal of the show. And maybe I've noticed it from, I mean, obviously I knew you guys all beforehand, so I kind of knew what those relationships were like, but you really get that sense of the ensemble with the Thrilling Adventure Hour that you can see like through your posts. And I actually, looking up the website that's up there now, I was looking that up today, and I had never seen the little documentary clip that's on there. And like, even I started tearing up. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is really I'm like, these guys are great. And I think that's part of the appeal of that show, is that you really can sense that feeling of ensemble and love for each other. Because you guys the core group does do improv shows together too, correct?
Yeah, all of us who improvise get together once a month out here. And that came out of, hey, we're not doing shows anymore. We really want to do something together. And everybody was always on board. I don't think there was ever a doubt that people would want to do it. But the fact that we've carved out the time to do it is, I think, really says something. And it's just like a pleasure. I love getting to see my friends once a month. That was doing the show was great. And it was like 1 and 1A with getting to see everybody and hang out like that. Really, like whatever's going on in your life at the time, you could show up and you're there with your family for a little while. This chosen family, and that from the ensembles you've had and the people you're close with, how that feels and what a big deal that is to have in your life.
Oh yeah, for sure. And what is I'm curious, this is a question for me. What is the improv scene like out there now? It's been so many years since I've been out there that, I mean, when I left, it was kind of like, we did a lot at Second City just because that was kind of your home, our home. And it just had that feeling. And then of course we'd still perform other places. And I knew that there were other people that they had their homes, and they were kind of the 3 big theaters out there. But I'm just kind of curious, what's the improv scene like now out there? Has it grown? Has it shrunk?
I think it's always kind of growing. When IO West closed, UCB was already going strong. So then you had 4 big theaters. But I think what happened from IO West is a lot of the people who were teachers there, they went off and started their own theaters, their own spaces. So that's helped. It may not be like 1 big theater, but it may be 4 or 5 medium theaters with tons of great players and new people coming on. So that's kind of the great thing. It feels like we were both there for the explosion of improvisation in like the mid to late 90s, that we all caught the bug around then. And then by the 2000s in LA, everything was kind of established and growing, and people meet at a theater and then eventually spin off and do their own thing, like what we're doing with WorkJuice, or the Transformers, which are a lot of groundlings and people from different theaters who came together and created their own long-running show at a different space. So there's just tons of great stuff to see, and there are always great new talented people coming in. And that's what's great about improvisation, is you don't have to come from Juilliard to sort of learn it and figure out whether you have a facility for it or whether you love it. You can sort of jump into it pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it felt like we were kind of coming in on it. Like, I feel like and this might just be me, but I felt like the time that we had at Second City when it was still on Melrose, and it was just, to me, I mean, it was just such a special time. And I don't know if this still happens, but it just felt like there wasn't a clear line of teacher student. There was a lot of teachers playing with students, students playing with teachers, and teachers performing a ton, and then students performing. And it really felt like such a special time to be there, and because it just felt like everybody was involved. Like I said, it didn't feel like this is the faculty, these are the students, and we don't intermix with those. I still remember like nights of getting to perform with Dave Rosowski and Mark Evan Jackson, and like that's the sort of stuff that sticks with me. Like, oh man, that was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Dave Rosowski and Lee Costello and the entire faculty there did a great job of turning it into a community, because as a Midwest guy, that the LA Second City is way different than Chicago. Because in Chicago, you show up, you take classes, you go to conservatory, then you're trying to get into Torco, and then hopefully ETC, and then hopefully main stage. So you're joining it with a goal in mind, sort of similar to Groundlings. But in LA, the end result is you graduate and then you continue to create content there on your own. You have guys like Simon Helberg and Derek Waters and Eric Edelstein out there doing these stage shows that we got to go watch.
Yeah.
And, getting to work with those guys. And now they're all huge stars. Bill Hader came out of Second City, LA. I remember doing a show at IO West that he was also a part of, and seeing him he and his comedy partner did a bit where one of them has just has a heart attack in the middle of a 2-man, like who's on first, and the other one just finishes the act, but only doing half of it and slowly like panicking and losing their mind. And it was brilliant. And I didn't realize till later that that's who that was.
Oh, really? Yeah. I graduated with Bill.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. We were in separate classes, but we were on the same line. And so he was just the other class, and we would, same thing. We would mix classes all the time. And so, yeah, I'd get to hang out with him a lot, but yeah, that was one of those things where that whole, him getting on Saturday Night Live, I love telling people that story, because that is like such a, let's rally around the person that has the best shot, and let's lift him up so that he can do it. And I love that story of how he got on that show and everything. And that was so cool. And actually, well, next week, Tuesday, I don't know if you know Kristen Hensley. With and Jen Smedley. I'll be on interviewing Kristen next week. So
nice.
So there's that Second City connection again there. Okay. Never goes away. Let me see here. Let me make sure we don't have any questions online. Okay, bear with me. I'll keep looking.
You're fine.
So the other podcast that you are a part of is called We Got This with Mark and Hal.
Yes.
And why don't you explain the premise of that
sure.
show?
Happy to. So Mark and I take things that you argue with your friends and family about that are not important at all. Stuff like whether ketchup should go on a hot dog, whether you should fold or roll your socks, whether Star Wars or Star Trek is better. And then we settle those once and for all. So I consider us to be like a Supreme Court of dumb. So we'll take it and talk about it for like half hour to an hour, and then come up with a decision. Whatever we decide is binding for all time, across all media, across all known and unknown entities.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I think such a great job with it, and it's so funny to do. My two favorites are Who's the Best Disney Princess? And that one I think you guys got that right. And
thank you.
The other one is and this one, like, I was fully invested in this one because what's the greatest movie trilogy?
Oh yeah.
Because that one, I mean, and that one, it felt like it went on a little longer, but it needed to, because there were a lot of really good points there. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody out there that's going to
appreciate that.
Go and listen to it. But I suggest those two episodes because they're really good and really funny. And it's great listening to you guys too. And Mark again too. Tell him I said hi next time you talk to him.
I will. I definitely will. We're recording on Sunday, and I will tell him. Yeah.
And I didn't realize too, I was interviewing Austin Titchener yesterday. And I know he was on the show as well.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize too that he was your sketch writing teacher.
Yes, he was.
For a short time. And we figured that out. I didn't even realize that he had taught there at all.
I think it was like so quick. I don't even know if he taught more. I don't know if I was his only class or like the only period he was teaching. I was one of his students. But he was our writing 1 teacher, I think. No, writing 2. He was writing 2. And he was great. It was so nice that we got along immediately. And Austin is such a nice, great guy. It's not hard to get along with him. But it's nice that connection remained. And then when I was doing Hawk and Dove with Mike Faulkner and Mike Ross, he listened to that and was very supportive of it. And it's just always been, he's always just sort of been there, and we've stayed in contact. Just like, what a great guy.
Yeah, it's eye-opening to me to see like the world seems so big, but then you start realizing, oh no, everybody knows each other.
Yeah, it's the smallest world.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad at the same time now to see, I mean, just how small it is, just how quickly everything has traveled currently, that it's like, it really shows you how connected we all are to the entire world. Yeah. It's crazy.
That's also, I think, been one of the hidden blessing of this is I'm in direct touch with people who are friends. You just take people for granted in your life because, hey, I can go see them anytime. We can go grab anything. But now that we're all staying sort of bunkered into where we are, that gives us more opportunity. Like, yeah, let's do a virtual game night. Let's all see each other's faces. Let's take this beyond just texting or emailing.
Yeah.
And I think that our bonds are going to grow stronger, even though physically we can't be in the same place.
Right. Yeah. And that, I agree. Yeah. Because that was the crazy thing. Like seeing you now, like, when's the last time we talked? You know?
I know. That was like, I was so excited. First of all, when you asked me, I was like, oh, me? Yes, of course. But I was excited to get to talk to you and see you. And you're in I like that your basement office is loaded with Broadway posters.
Well, those are posters from our theater shows.
Oh, those are shows that you've done. Oh, this is great.
So we have Billy Elliot, Miracle Wedding Singer,
Big
Gentleman's Guide. Let's see.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. So, but you're seeing a very specific corner of my office, because if I can that way, it's a mountain of just garbage that will just fall on me. So,
yeah, my framing is also very intentional.
Yeah. When I saw a picture of you the other night of it, it was up on a box, and I love that nobody had like dress pants on for the Thrilling Adventure Hour 2. Everybody was like from here up was just super nice, and then it was just pajama pants. And
I think that was Blacker's call to do that. I was like, yeah, I will wear pajama pants all the time. Please.
That was super funny. Yeah. So you've also, since the last time I've seen you, you've been doing a lot of voiceover work.
Mm-hmm.
Could you describe, I know we have a lot of students that do some voiceover work here locally, but it's mostly like commercial work, like come on down to Ted's Boatorama and
I've heard of them. They're great.
Yeah. So it's not actually animation voiceover work. That's something I'm really curious about, what the process like that is, if you actually see the animation or if you're in just a booth just talking and the animation comes later. Can you describe just what that whole process is like?
Sure. And it depends. There's no one way to do it. I worked on a Cartoon Network show called Mighty Magiswords. That one was a big group record. So we were all, as many of us as possible, were in the room together, and then they would show us sort of the pre-visuals. So you'd see an animatic. So an animated storyboard, and the artist had done voices. So you got an idea of sort of what it was going to look like. And then we would go scene by scene and then record that scene a couple times and then move on to the next one. For Venture Brothers, they write the script and then you go in by yourself, and you have Jackson Public, who's the creator of the show. He's directing you on the other end, and either he or Doc Hammer have written the script, and you go through all of your stuff. So whatever character, generally you do up to 3 in a session. So I'll do like 3 different characters. We'll do probably the longest one first, then second, third. And that one is that I love doing those because Jackson does half the voices on the show and Doc does the other half.
Oh, wow.
So whoever I'm interacting with at a scene, it's probably him that's going to be doing the voice. So we're actually performing with one another.
Okay.
And that's really nice. You don't always get that, but to be able to actually perform it as a live scene, either with the other actual cast members around you or with the director who will be doing that work later, is a real luxury. And it helps you get into it, I think, quicker.
Yeah. Because that was going to be my other question, because I watch a lot of Disney stuff, so I know I see them. They're usually just in the room by themselves and not even interacting with anybody. That to me would be, I think, extremely difficult to try and play off of somebody if you don't actually hear how they say their line before.
Absolutely, and part of it becomes, the same work you do on any text. If you're doing a play with people and you're constantly rehearsing with them, is you still have to figure out the intention behind things and what's going on in the scene overall. You don't get the other person with you, but that just makes it more important that the way you deliver your lines makes sense. Even in an improv way, you're setting up the other person, right?
Yeah.
And you're assuming sort of what they're going to give you, and you may record it a few different ways to give them a few different options.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the fun, is you do get to play around a little bit. Depends on the project. Some let you improvise a lot more. Some just want you to stick to the script. But there's always something you can bring from an improv background, whether it's a breath or just a little stammer in the line that create and fill out the character. So you have to do that work regardless. And I think that's what trips a lot of people up who want to get into voice acting, is they say, well, I have a great voice, or I can sound like Cookie Monster, so I should do voiceover. And that's great. There are a million people who can sound like Cookie Monster. So the question is, what are you going to bring to it of yourself that is special and uniquely you? And it's going to come through in the performance. That's really where you're going to get it. It's not the ability to do the voice. It's the ability to interpret text, to deliver jokes, to find the emotion in a moment and play it through.
Yeah. Well, that's the first time I heard that. I apologize, I don't know what the character's name is. The big guy.
Wide Wale.
Yeah. The first time I heard that, I'm like, that is Hal? I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I never in a million years I would have guessed that was him.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's got to be fun though, to be able to play with different voices. And
yeah, and that's part of it is, Venture Brothers so heavily. If you're out there watching this and you haven't watched Venture Brothers and you like comic books or cartoons or any kind of pop culture stuff in that vein, it is the series for you, because they not only do Doc and Jackson know that stuff really well, but they send it up hilariously, and it has a life of its own. So the season I joined, which was 2 seasons ago, they were moving the whole show to New York from the West Coast. That was the characters were moving. Okay. So he told me the character was Kingpin, but underwater. So I know who Kingpin is. It already gives you like that's such a great gift as a performer.
Yeah.
That you know who he is, and then you just figure out how to add a little like water to that.
Yeah.
And fill it out. It's a lot of tongue. It's a lot of like filling the back of your mouth with your tongue and like moving your tongue back.
I've been told that for other stuff too.
To move your tongue back? Can you move your tongue back, Brent?
Move your tongue back.
We put your name in the title. What else do you want?
Yeah. So what is next for you? What things do you have coming up? What can we plug on here?
So the podcasts are still going strong. I hope you'll listen to We Got This with Mark and Hal. We have almost 270 episodes we've put out in the last 5 years. A lot of people that you love from pop culture have come and guested on our show. All the Thrilling Adventure Hour people. Nathan Fillion did the trilogy episode. We had Weird Al on to talk about the music of Monty Python. And we're going to keep recording and keep putting out new episodes. And it'll be interesting to see how we incorporate guests in during this time and how the show is different. But it's We Got This with Mark and Hal. I also host a wrestling podcast if you're a wrestling fan. Called Fights and Fights. I actually recorded that and then jumped on this with you. So I lined them up one after the other.
Boom, boom, boom.
But they're both on the Maximum Fun Network. And then Good Morning Night Vale is the third podcast I host that is a wrap-up show. We are re-listening to Welcome to Night Vale. Me and 2 of the other cast members. We've all been performing in it for 7-8 years. And we're doing a re-listen from episode 1 and giving some behind the scenes stuff and analysis. And that's really fun too. So you can listen to all that. Follow me at Hal Lublin. It's kind of a weird time right now in that auditions are coming in, but there aren't as many of them. A lot of productions have halted. So it's nice to be able to still put out podcasts and have some sort of creative outlet. And who knows what other things are going to be going on live. So I actually have another live stream later today for Podcast Con. We're going to be talking, it's me and Janet Varney are going to be talking about quarantine survival tips.
Oh, nice.
So you can check that out. Follow me on Twitter at Hal Lublin. You'll get all the deets will be shared there.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me. And it was great catching up and seeing your face.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the great intro as well. I feel like I should have thanked you then, but I'm doing it now.
No. It's okay. We're all learning. We're all learning.
Give Sarah and the kids my best. Jennifer is watching in the other room.
I will. Yes.
Sort of see her through the window.
Tell her I said hi. I can kind of see a shadow reflection there.
That's right. That's it. There she is.
Yeah.
She sits in my eye.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Let's chat again soon.
Please.
All right. Thanks again.